point will be on the 14th of April, the reaction towards the illegal tariffs on steel and aluminium, and a lot of products like fitness devices and fishery devices. So these two examples are making clear that these elements are not really harming the national interests of the United States. So that's also not in line with proper cooperation. That's also an illegal act. And we will have a second tranche a little bit later, because we have to analyze the effect of the announced tariffs, because it's totally clear the principle of our countermeasures. We want really to limit our countermeasures to the real harm we got, the real damage. We would not go further, so we are not the engine of escalation. And secondly, we will have also to look that we really limit the damage for the European Union and the consumer inside the European Union. So therefore it will take a little bit of time. And this is also linked to our democratic process. And I'm really proud that inside the European Union we are deciding on such countermeasures in a democratic way based on proper legislation the European Parliament made, and I was the rapporteur for the anti-coercion instrument. We have a different way to decide. It's not only one man deciding everything, and I'm really proud that we have a really democratic and different way. Fifthly, we will look also quite carefully to the indirect effect. We did it on the steel side, so after we announcing 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium, we looked also to our safeguards and increased the safeguards so that we are not targeted by steel not going to the United States anymore and coming to the European market, and we will do it also towards other goods. We have to analyze this also quite carefully. And last point, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are harmed by the measures, but of course, like Indonesia, over 30% tariffs. It's a growing economy. We want to stable the economic development of the people of the countries of the global south, and this is really a counterproductive action, and this will really have a lot of negative consequences in Indonesia and other countries as well. And therefore, it's totally clear that the European Union and the European Parliament will really look to increase our network of stable trade agreements with reliable partner. And I will go in 2 weeks to Indonesia. We are negotiating for a long time now, and I guess 20 rounds in trade agreement, and I guess we will finish this year. This is one example of strengthening our cooperation, specifically with the countries of the global south. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We will now go to a round of questions, first from the room. Please state your name and your media before you ask the question. Thank you. Please.
Good morning. Jana Hemmersmeyer for AFP News Agency. The French government this morning said that they would expect measures on digital companies like Google, Apple, Meta to be part of countermeasures. Is that also your expectation? And secondly, you said that the EU would use, for example, the anti-coercion instrument. Is that something that's concretely being discussed? Thanks.
Of course, we discussed the use of the anti-coercion instrument. This is, of course, the bazooka, the strongest measure we could take. But we have to really to analyze, and this 30 pages justification gives some indication of what the United States are wanting, but we have to be careful. So this is the strongest weapon we have, but of course it's on the table, let's say it this way. And yes, even in our enforcement legislation, we could establish measures on goods, but also on services. And we know that we have a deficit as European Union from about 100 billion euro in services. And the US tech giants had a turnover from around about 30% of their benefit here from the European Union. And of course, if we are really in a escalation ladder, then of course we will have a look to the tech giants as well. I would say this is not the first choice. First we have our more traditional measures, and then of course we can start negotiations. This is, by the way, also the lesson from Trump 1. Terrorists set, counter-terrorists are set, and then negotiation could start. But of course we have some important services like PayPal, like other tech companies, where we could think about some countermeasures as well.
Please.
Mirra Manchón, Deutsche Welle para América Latina. I will put my question in Spanish, if I may. Thank you. Diputado Lange, usted ha dicho que el sur global se va a ver muy afectado por estas medidas, estas tarifas del gobierno de los Estados Unidos. Brasil es uno de los afectados en cuanto al aluminio, así como la misma Unión Europea. ¿Tienen ya preparado pasos concretos para trabajar con los socios afectados en este campo? Muchas gracias.
Of course, with the Mercosur countries, we have the agreement negotiated, and I hope we can ratify it as soon as possible. This will stabilize the economic relation, no doubt about. We will eliminate tariffs. At the moment, we have in some key products on both sides more than 30% tariffs, and this will give opportunities, of course, on the Mercosur side, but also for the European producers to substitute a little bit the situation towards the United States. And let's see if we can really also cooperate in a more lower level way on some items which are now really under attack from the United States. We will see. So, as I mentioned, we will now contact our trading partners, specifically also the industrialized countries like Japan, like South Korea, but, of course, a lot of countries in the Global South, where we have also strong relations. You mentioned Mercosur, but also, for example, Vietnam, where we have now 5 years. So we have the celebration of the trade agreement with Vietnam on the 1st of August, and they were hit also in a totally unfair way, so that we can compensate a little bit this situation as well.
There was another question over there.
Yes, thank you. Federica Bianchi, L'Espresso, Italy. So I have a couple of questions. One, I'm interested in understanding a little bit better what you know about the discussion that went on about the deficit in services the European Union has with the United States, because we are always, all the big headlines of the press are always on the deficit in trade, and never on the surplus that the U.S. has towards the European Union. How do the U.S. justify this? What do they say when they say, "Oh, we have this huge, tremendous, horrible, deplorable, whatever deficit"? Because to my knowledge, it gets almost even, just a little bit more if you add services and goods. We are not that distant between the US, so we are quite balanced. So I would like to understand what they say and how they say and how they justify that. Then secondly, also, you mentioned safeguards, just passing. Can you just go a little bit more in details in what kind of safeguards and indirect effects you're actually looking into, like naming them a little bit more in the name, and that's it for now. Thank you.
Yeah, on your first question, of course, we mention it always, that United States have a surplus in services round about 100 billion euro. And secondly, also regarding foreign direct investment, they are also quite present inside the European Union. This is not counting in the argumentation. That's really an old-fashioned thinking that the main issue of trade is in goods. This is, of course, not the truth anymore. But personally, I'm really thinking that's really a mercantile thinking which perhaps was working 200 years ago, but the world has changed. But this is not recognized. In this 30 pages, you see that mainly it is focused on goods, so that U.S. goods or some agriculture goods are not possible to enter the European market because our strong standards for consumer protections and not allowing hormone and beef production and so on. The only elements where services is tackled is that they are saying that in our digital legislation there is an unfair situation towards U.S. companies because they were more under the control of this legislation than European companies. That's the only part where services were mentioned. So that's the thinking of the United States. That's not wrong, not right. So the thinking of, let's say, the main people in the White House. And secondly, in the frame of WTO, you have the right, if there is an indirect effect, to establish safeguards for 8 years. And we did it under Trump 1 for steel. So we established more or less also 25% tariff on steel and some quotas for steel, which is now coming to European market, which was before targeted to the United States, like steel from Turkey, for example, and the United Arab Emirates and so on. And we have to look what effect the new tariffs will have and which products might be falling under a safeguard as well. This is a little bit complicated, but it is possible. The main problem, of course, is that according to the WTO rules, we have only the possibility to use it for 8 years, and we will have a expiring of the safeguard for steel next year. So we have to think how to find an intelligent method to secure our steel production without harming WTO rules.
Yes, please.
Herr Lange, Weilport, ZDF. Die Absicht der US-Regierung, so hat es jedenfalls Präsident Trump mal gesagt, ist, nicht alle zu bestrafen mit Zöllen, sondern mit jedem Land einzeln in einen Dialog zu kommen. Er sagt Dialog, um sozusagen für USA günstige Konditionen im bilateralen Handel auszuarbeiten. Sie sind nicht der Rat, Sie vertreten das Parlament. Wie steht das Parlament dazu? Sie können ja nicht verhindern, dass die italienische Regierungschefin, der ungarische Regierungschef nach Washington fährt und möglicherweise jetzt bilateral Lösungen sucht.
Das würde natürlich Herrn Trump sehr gut gefallen, wenn er die EU spalten könnte. Wir haben ja schon einige Versuche gesehen, auch jetzt bei dem Exportverbot oder der Exportrestriktionen für Halbleiter, dass das versucht wurde. Aber ich kann Ihnen versichern, im Bereich Handel steht die EU gemeinsam. Zum einen ist es im Vertrag ja auch vorgesehen, Handel ist EU-only-Kompetenz und da wird es keinen Split geben. Und zum Zweiten sind natürlich die wirtschaftlichen Interessen so verwoben. Sie haben Ungarn genannt. In Ungarn gibt es auch eine starke Automobilindustrie, die hiervon betroffen sind. Auch die Lieferketten sind so verwoben, dass man überhaupt nicht ein Land da herausbrechen kann. Und ich denke auch, wenn man noch mal diese bedeutenden 30 Seiten durchliest, da sind auch einzelne Beispiele von einzelnen Ländern genannt, Länder der Europäischen Union. Und das geht auch quer durch die 27 Länder. Also da kann man sehen, da wird es nicht differenziert. Nein, da habe ich keine Angst vor. Und ich meine, das ist ja auch klar, wir sind 450 Millionen Menschen. Wir sind eine wirtschaftlich starke Macht und haben auch ganz andere Möglichkeiten zu reagieren, auch mit Partnern, als vielleicht andere kleinere Staaten.
Any other question? Yes, please.
Yes, good morning. Simone Disegni from Open Italy. I wanted to understand what is the agenda for the next few days and next week. I mean, when do you think the countermeasures, or anyway the strategy will be defined, will be decided by the Commission, of course? And also, I know that a delegation guided by you, if I'm not wrong, will be traveling to the US next week. I was wondering, what are your aims in that mission? Who will you meet, and so on?
Yes, indeed. So the next weeks will be quite intensive regarding negotiations. So, as I mentioned, on the 14th of April, we will have the first tranche of our countermeasures. But in parallel, we're discussing the second tranche, and this will be an intensive contact between Parliament and the Member States and the Commission. Sabine Weyand, Director General of DG Trade, will come to the intercommittee on I guess, Monday or Tuesday next week. There we will have an exchange. Then also next week, the Trade Minister Council will meet. And yes, on the 9th, I'm going to Washington. And luckily, I have a visa, so I was not sure about that, but I got it. And then, of course, I will have a chat also with the Trade Administration and, of course, also with the House and the Senate to look how they are feeling and how they can perhaps limit the damage, because they have, the other way around. In the US Constitution, trade is the competence of the House. And based on some legislation, this legislation Trump is using, this 232 or 301, or not even an older legislation, he is acting alone. But of course, the Parliament, the House, has a right to take the competence back to the House based on the Constitution. And let's see how the relevant people in the House and in the Senate will think. You heard yesterday night there was also a resolution passed in the Senate giving some critical position towards the policy of Trump. Even some Republicans voted in favor of that. So this is the main target, to discuss, to start negotiation with the administration and having an intensive dialogue with the Congress, with the House and the Senate. And then I guess there will be also some official discussion between Maroš Šefčovič and his counterparts. But of course we need really a basis of what we can negotiate on. So European legislation is not on the table.
Let's go online now. We have two people requesting the floor online. We can go back. We can go back after, because Mr. Düsseldorf has been waiting quite some time already. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. You can hear me already? Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Lange, thank you. You said it this morning on the radio, and you said it now, that Trump was making a complicated calculation that includes European standards and regulations to justify the 20%. But in fact, when you look at the basic calculation, it is very simple. You divide the trade surplus of an economic area by the total exports of that area to the US, which gives you the 39% in the table. Dividing that by 2 gives you the 20% import tariffs. With all due respect, that's kindergarten mathematics. And what makes you think, maybe you have more information, what makes you think that regulations and standards are in fact included in that calculation?
He mentioned it in his speech yesterday. So he mentioned the VAT and also some other non-tariff barriers. In this 30 pages, you find also some remarks. This is not acceptable, the standards. And, for example, on cars, in this paper is mentioned that we also only respect international standards like the EU and ECE and not US standards. And for me, this is not any justification. We have this international standard. So, then indeed the question how this is really fit in to this 39%. You see also a formula on that, a little bit complicated. I learned this not in mathematics, and I'm not sure that is really, this is based on scientific exercises.
Mr. Kavsak, also online. Are you still?
Can you hear me well? Good morning, Mr. Lange. Hendrik Kavsak, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. I would like to push you a little bit further on the ACI. You seem to be quite cautious about using the anti-coercion instrument now. But then again, if you really want to hit the US and hit the digital companies, you cannot do without. Shouldn't the EU be a little bit more offensive when it comes to that at the moment? Because otherwise, you just seem to be taking the position, we'll wait and see, we're ready to negotiate, we're not hitting you hard at all.
I just mentioned that this instrument is there and it is on the table, and it's no secret that we are looking how to operationalize this instrument, no doubt about. But I guess this is clear, this is the last resort. This is not our first step. And we want to find a solution in negotiation, because using the ACI, this would be really a hard escalation. And this is totally not in the interest of the people. And therefore, last resort, but we have it. And this should be calculated by everybody.
Mrs. Rankin, also online.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm sorry. Apologies. Jennifer Rankin from The Guardian. And in fact, it was also a question about the ACI. In your previous answer just now, it sounded as if, well, you said it was a last resort. But so at the moment, is it the case you don't think the EU should turn to this instrument, despite that 30-page document you mentioned, despite all the criticism of EU legislation? Is this not the moment, given that the Trump administration has EU legislation in its sights? Surely this is a case for triggering the anti-coercion instrument. This appears to be a case of attempted coercion. So why not turn to it now? And what's the point that you think the EU would have to turn to the last resort?
No, we will now analyze the effect of the announced tariffs quite carefully, and then having this second tranche. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of possibilities to use our enforcement regulation. And if also regarding the next weeks, it will be clear that there will be economic coercive pressure, then of course we will start the process as well. And this process is a little more lengthy, because we have to really investigate the case and make a clear distinction between other elements and coercive pressure. Then, of course, we want to also negotiate, because negotiation is better than using the gun. And then it has to be implemented. So it's a little bit more lengthy than the normal enforcement regulation. But I guess it's acceptable because we want to be serious. And we want to be also in the framework of WTO. We want not just tick for tack because we are strong and we could do it. No, we want to be serious and we are defending the multilateral trading order. And this is also relevant for the using of the ACI. And therefore, perhaps I'm from the north of Germany and we are also a little bit more relaxed and not so emotional. And therefore, we are looking really carefully what's going on and define our proper reaction on that.
There were some more questions from the room. We will take some together because we have another press conference in 10 minutes. So we can stay briefly if you can, please.
Edith de Vries from the Netherlands. I want you to elaborate on what you said this morning in your press release. The tariffs of the US you call unjustified, illegal and disproportional. But if Europe also uses tariffs against the Americans, is it then legal, legitimate and proportional? What's the difference between American tariffs and European countermeasures like tariffs?
And then over there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Danielle Weber with the Luxembourg Public Radio. Ich werde meine Frage auf Deutsch stellen. Herr Lange, Sie haben, und das hat auch Kommissionspräsidentin Ursula von der Leyen heute Morgen gemacht, das wird schon wiederholt gesagt, dass alle Instrumente der EU auf dem Tisch sind. Das hat aber bisher wenig Eindruck auf der Gegenseite gemacht. Deswegen meine Frage, wie geht denn die EU jetzt in diese Verhandlungen rein? Mit welchen neuen Elementen kann die EU denn hier auftreten und doch versuchen, die Gegenseite noch zu überzeugen? Das ist von außen jetzt so ein bisschen schwer nachzuvollziehen. Danke.
So first, we are building our countermeasures on a proper legislation which is in line with WTO rules. That's crucial, and this is in the United States totally not the case. They are really putting the axe towards the multilateral ruling system. That's really important. And secondly, we are looking in a proportional way. So as mentioned, we are not, if you are saying 20%, we are not saying in principle 20% because we look really to the damage. What is the damage and what is the proportional reaction on that? That's really a totally different approach. And we have also a clear defensive legislation. So we could never start a trade war because this 232 Act or 301 Act is an offensive. And also this element which Trump is now using. This is also an offensive emergency measures. This is not possible by the European Union. We have only defensive instruments. Wir hatten die Schwierigkeit, in den Gesprächen mit den Vereinigten Staaten zu wissen, was sie eigentlich wollen. Und wenn man sich jetzt die Zölle und diese 30 Seiten anguckt, sieht man, dass da viele Dinge genannt werden, die was mit unseren Gesetzen zu tun haben. Und da können wir nicht hingehen und sagen, wir ändern jetzt DSA oder wir ändern jetzt unsere Lebensmittelsicherheit. Völlig ausgeschlossen. Ist es, dass Sie mehr Investitionen in die Vereinigten Staaten haben wollen? Kann sein. Es gibt ja schon einige Investitionsentscheidungen. Da kann man gucken, ist das vernünftig, kann man was begleiten, kann man vielleicht was austauschen, so, darüber könnte man reden. Man kann auch über die gegenseitigen Zölle reden, also das berühmte Beispiel, dass die USA Importzölle für Autos von 2,5% haben und wir 10%. Nebenbei, das ist hinterlegte Zölle bei der WTO, akzeptiert von allen Mitgliedern der WTO. Einstimmig, haben die USA so vorgeschlagen. Zur Wirklichkeit gehört aber auch dazu, dass die USA Importzölle für Pickups, für Light-Duty-Vehicles von 25% haben. Also der Ford 150 und entsprechende Autos würden mit 25% verzollt. Also wenn man über Zölle redet, muss man auch die ganze Wirklichkeit, also das könnte man auch machen. Und so gibt es ein paar andere Dinge auch. In den 30 Seiten, also empfehle ich jedem, da kann man wirklich ein comprehensive overview about the European legislation ziehen. In die ist auch die mangelnde militärische Kooperation drin. Also dass man sagt, mehr Militärgüter können gekauft. Kann man über vieles reden. Wir haben auch immer Gesprächsangebote gemacht. Lass uns doch darüber reden, lass uns darüber reden. Das ist immer abgelehnt worden. Und wir können ja, und das machen wir natürlich nicht, einseitig sagen, okay, weil ihr nicht redet, deswegen sagen wir jetzt, wir reduzieren unsere Zölle auf X. Das geht natürlich nicht. Erstmal müssen wir wissen, wo eigentlich Verhandlungsbereitschaft und Notwendigkeit auf der amerikanischen Seite ist. Und das ist im Moment das große Problem.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lange. Unfortunately, we will have to stop the press conference here. Thank you very much for your attention and have a nice day. Thank you. Thank you.